As usual, if you like these stories or it felt meaningful to you, feel free to like, share, and comment your thoughts below, as well as subscribing to our channel. It could be a huge support for our work. Now, let's just enjoy the stories.
No one was ever allowed to sit in that chair. Not his men, not his guests, not even his closest allies. It sat behind the massive oak desk in his office. Black leather, pristine, positioned exactly 17 inches from the edge. The armrests were wiped down twice daily. The cushion had never been compressed by anyone's weight. It was perfectly aligned, perfectly clean, perfectly untouched, just the way the Mafia boss needed it to be. Marcus Donovan ran the entire northeast corridor from that office. Drugs, weapons, protection rackets. His empire stretched across 5 states. He could order a man dead with a single phone call. He could topple businesses, destroy reputations, disappear problems before they became headlines. But he couldn't sit in a chair that someone else had touched. He couldn't step on cracks. He couldn't leave a door open at an odd angle. He couldn't end a meeting without tapping his desk 3 times with his left hand. His men called it discipline. His enemies called it insanity. He called it survival. Because in a world built on chaos and blood, control was the only thing keeping Marcus Donovan from drowning. So when he walked into his office one Tuesday evening and found his cleaner sitting in that chair, calm, still, unafraid, everyone expected her to disappear. Instead, she stayed. The cleaning company sent someone new every 6 weeks. Marcus required it. Same person for too long meant familiarity. Familiarity meant patterns. Patterns meant vulnerability. In his world, vulnerability meant death. The new cleaner arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, escorted by Vincent, Marcus's head of security, who looked like he'd rather be waterboarding someone than babysitting a woman with a mop bucket. "4th floor," Vincent grunted, not looking at her. "Boss's office is the last door. Don't touch anything on the desk. Don't move anything more than necessary. Don't—" "I know the rules," she said quietly. Vincent paused. Most cleaners were chatty, nervous, trying to prove they weren't a threat. This one just existed. Calm. Present. Her name was Elena Torres, 27 years old, dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. No makeup. Tired eyes that had seen too much and expected nothing. She'd been hired through Crystal Clean Services 3 days ago, her 8th job in 2 years. The pay was better than most. The hours were terrible. But Elena had learned a long time ago that you didn't turn down decent money just because the hours were bad. She'd survived worse than bad hours. Vincent left her on the 4th floor with a key card and a warning. "He comes back in 2 hours. Be gone by then." Elena nodded. She started in the bathroom attached to Marcus's office. Everything was already clean, spotless. But she scrubbed anyway. The sink, the mirror, the tile grout. The toilet hadn't been used. The towels were folded in perfect thirds. Whoever this man was, he didn't just want clean. He needed it. Elena recognized the signs. She'd cleaned for enough people to know the difference between preference and compulsion. This office wasn't just organized, it was controlled. Every pen in the desk drawer, aligned. Every book on the shelf, spine out, arranged by height and color. The rug had vacuum lines running north to south, never diagonal. She moved carefully, respectfully. By the time she reached the main office area, her lower back was screaming. She'd worked a double shift at the hospital laundry service before this, and her legs felt like concrete. Just 5 minutes, she thought. 5 minutes to sit, and then I'll finish. The chair behind the desk was empty. Black leather. Expensive. Elena glanced at the door, still closed, still quiet. She sat down. The leather was cool against her legs. The chair was firmer than she expected, like it had never been broken in. She leaned back just for a moment and closed her eyes. 5 minutes. That's all she needed. Marcus Donovan returned to his office at 6:47 p.m. He was 17 minutes early. Vincent opened the door for him, already talking. Quarterly numbers came in. Castellano's shipment cleared customs. The judge signed off on... Marcus stopped. Vincent kept talking for another 3 seconds before he realized his boss wasn't moving. Marcus stood in the doorway, completely still, staring at his desk, at the chair behind his desk, at the woman sitting in his chair. She was asleep. Head tilted slightly to the left, hands folded in her lap, breathing slow and even. She looked small, tired, like she'd collapsed and her body had simply given up. Vincent's hand moved toward his gun. Boss, don't. Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. He couldn't move, couldn't think. His entire nervous system was screaming. Someone was sitting in his chair. His vision narrowed, his heartbeat spiked. The edges of the room started to blur, and he could feel it rising, the need to count, to check, to realign everything until the world made sense again. 3 steps to the left, touch the door frame, count the panels, check the lock, check it again, and no. He forced himself to breathe. In for 4. Hold for 4. Out for 4. The woman in his chair didn't move. Vincent was watching him carefully. Everyone in the organization knew the rules. No one touched the boss's things. No one sat in his chair. Ever. Want me to wake her? Vincent asked quietly. Marcus didn't answer. He was staring at her face. She wasn't afraid. Even in sleep, there was no tension in her features, no anticipation of violence, no flinching, just stillness. And somehow, that was worse than fear, because fear made sense. Fear was predictable. Fear meant control. But this woman, sleeping in his chair like it was the most natural thing in the world, she wasn't giving him anything to work with. Boss? Marcus swallowed. Wake her. Vincent crossed the room and touched the woman's shoulder. Hey, time to go. Elena's eyes opened slowly. For a moment, she looked confused, like she'd forgotten where she was. Then her gaze focused on Vincent, then on Marcus, still standing in the doorway. She stood up immediately. I'm sorry, she said. Her voice was calm, even. No panic. I sat down for just a minute. I didn't mean to fall asleep. Marcus watched her smooth down her shirt, adjust her ponytail. She looked at the chair like she was trying to figure out if she'd done something wrong. You're not supposed to sit there, Vincent said. I know, Elena replied. I'm sorry. That was it. No excuses, no begging, just an acknowledgement and an apology. Marcus finally moved. He walked into the room, past Vincent, and stopped 3 feet from his desk. Elena stepped aside, giving him space. She didn't run, didn't cower, she just waited. What's your name? Marcus asked. Elena Torres. How long have you been working for Crystal Clean? 3 days. Did they tell you the rules? Yes. Then why did you sit in my chair? Elena met his eyes. Most people couldn't. Most people looked at Marcus Donovan and saw death. But this woman just looked tired. Because I was exhausted, she said simply. And it was there. No lies, no manipulation, just honesty. Marcus felt something shift in his chest, something unfamiliar. He looked at the chair. Someone had sat in it. The leather was still warm. The cushion was compressed. Everything in him screamed to throw it away, burn it, replace it. But he didn't. He turned to Vincent. Leave us. Vincent hesitated. Boss? Out. Vincent left. The door closed with a soft click. Marcus and Elena stood in silence. You're not afraid? Marcus said finally. Elena shook her head. Should I be? Most people are. I'm not most people. Marcus studied her. There was something in her eyes, not defiance, not bravery, just acceptance. Like she'd already decided that whatever happened next, she could survive it. Sit down, he said. Elena blinked. What? In the chair. Sit down. She hesitated. Now. Elena sat. Marcus watched her settle into the leather, hands in her lap, back straight. She didn't relax, didn't claim the space. She just existed in it. Why aren't you afraid? He asked. Elena thought about it. Because being afraid doesn't change anything. It should. Maybe. But I spent too many years being afraid of things I couldn't control. It didn't help. Marcus felt his pulse slow, the screaming in his head, the need to fix, to count, to realign. It was still there, but quieter now. He pulled over one of the client chairs and sat down across from her. For the first time in 15 years, Marcus Donovan was not sitting in his own chair, and the world didn't end. Tell me about yourself, he said. Elena didn't know what to say. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. She was supposed to clean, leave, get paid, and never think about this place again. But now she was sitting in a Mafia boss's chair while he stared at her like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. There's not much to tell, she said carefully. Try. Elena exhaled. I'm 27. I work 3 jobs. I live in a studio in Queens. I don't have family. Why 3 jobs? Because 1 doesn't pay enough. And the family? Elena's jaw tightened. Foster system. Aged out at 18. Haven't seen anyone since. Marcus nodded slowly. He understood survival. He understood building yourself from nothing. You're tired, he said. It wasn't a question. Elena almost laughed. Always. When was the last time you slept more than 4 hours? I don't remember. Marcus leaned back in the client chair. It felt wrong. Too low, too soft. But he didn't move. I'm going to make you an offer, he said. You'll work here. For me. Not cleaning. Just being here. Elena stared at him. I don't understand. Neither do I. Marcus ran a hand through his hair. But when you sat in that chair, something changed. I should have killed you for it, or at the very least thrown you out, but I didn't. Why? Because you weren't afraid. Elena frowned. That's not a reason. It's the only reason I have. They sat in silence. What would I do? Elena asked, finally. Whatever you want. Read, sleep, exist. That's not a job. I'll pay you $3,000 a week. Elena's breath caught. $3,000 a week was more than she made in a month across all 3 jobs combined. Why? She whispered. Marcus looked at his desk, at the pens, aligned, at the papers, stacked, at the world he'd built to keep the chaos at bay. Because when you're here, he said quietly, I don't have to count as much. Elena understood then. This man, this powerful, dangerous man, was drowning, and somehow her presence was a life raft. I don't know if I can help you, she said. You already have. Elena looked at the chair beneath her, the office around her, the man across from her. She should say no. She should walk away. Nothing good came from getting involved with men like this. But she thought about her studio apartment, about the mold in the bathroom, about the landlord who kept raising rent, about the bone-deep exhaustion that never went away. Okay, she said. Marcus's shoulders relaxed, just slightly. You start tomorrow, he said. 9 a.m. Vincent will meet you downstairs. What do I tell people I do? You don't tell people anything. Elena nodded. She stood up, smoothed her shirt. Marcus stood too. Can I ask you something? Elena said. Go ahead. Why the chair? Why is it so important? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Because everything else in my life is chaos, he said finally. But that chair, that space, it's mine. It's the one thing I can control, the one thing that stays exactly as I need it to be. Elena looked at him, really looked at him, and she saw something she recognized, a man trying desperately not to drown. I'll see you tomorrow, she said softly. Marcus nodded. Elena left. Marcus stood alone in his office, staring at the chair. The leather was still warm where she'd been sitting. He should have hated it, but he didn't. Elena showed up at 9:00 a.m. exactly. Vincent was waiting in the lobby, looking even less pleased than yesterday. "4th floor," he said. "Don't leave the office unless the boss says so." "Okay. Don't talk to anyone." "Okay. And don't sit in the chair. I know." Vincent grunted and led her upstairs. Marcus was already at his desk when they arrived. He looked up briefly, nodded at Elena, then went back to his paperwork. Elena stood by the door, unsure. "Sit," Marcus said without looking up. "Where?" He pointed to a leather couch against the wall. It looked expensive, untouched. Elena sat. And that was it. For 2 hours, Marcus worked, and Elena just existed. She watched him, not obviously, just quiet observation. He touched his desk 3 times before picking up the phone. He lined up his pens after every call. He adjusted the papers on his desk constantly, straightening, aligning, perfecting. Around 11 a.m., Vincent brought in coffee. "Black, no sugar," Vincent said, setting a cup sapone, Marcus's desk. Marcus stared at it. "It's touching the edge of the paper," he said quietly. Vincent moved the cup 1 inch to the left. Marcus exhaled, picked it up, took a sip. Vincent left. Elena realized she was holding her breath. "You can breathe," Marcus said, still not looking at her. "Sorry." "Don't apologize for breathing." Elena nodded, even though he wasn't watching. The day continued like that, quiet, still. Occasionally, men would knock on the door, always twice, never once, never 3 times. They'd speak to Marcus in low voices. He'd give orders. They'd leave. No one acknowledged Elena. She might as well have been furniture. Around 3:01 p.m., Marcus stood up and walked to the window. He stared out at the city for a long time. "Do you know what I do?" he asked. "I can guess," Elena said. "And you're still here. You're paying me $3,000 a week." Marcus almost smiled. Almost. "Is it just the money?" Elena thought about it. "No." "Then what?" "I don't know yet." Marcus turned to look at her. "When you figure it out, tell me." "Okay." He went back to his desk. The day ended at 6:00 p.m. Marcus told her to leave. Elena did. The next day was the same, and the next, and the next. By the end of the first week, something had shifted. Marcus's rituals didn't stop. He still counted, still aligned, still checked, but the intensity was different, softer. Elena started bringing a book. Marcus never asked what she was reading, but sometimes she'd catch him glancing at the cover. On day 8, he spoke without being prompted. "Do you like it here?" Elena looked up from her book. "It's quiet." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer I have." Marcus leaned back in his chair, the chair Elena had sat in that first night, the chair that started everything. "You remind me of someone," he said. "Who?" Myself, before. Before what? Before I learned that control was the only thing keeping me alive. Elena closed her book. And now? Now I don't know if I'm alive or just existing. She didn't have a response to that. Marcus stood up, walked to the window again. He did that a lot, she'd noticed, like he was trying to find something in the skyline that he kept losing. When I was 8, he said quietly, my father used to beat my mother. Every night. Same time. Same room. Same sounds. Elena's chest tightened. I couldn't stop it, Marcus continued. But I could control other things. I could make sure my shoes were lined up perfectly. I could make sure my school books were stacked in the right order. I could count the cracks in my bedroom ceiling until the screaming stopped. He turned to face her. Control became my language, he said. The only way I knew how to survive. Elena understood. God, she understood. My foster father used to lock me in the basement, she said softly, for hours, sometimes days. I couldn't control when he'd let me out, but I could control my breathing. I could count my heartbeats. I could create stillness in the chaos. Marcus's eyes softened. We're the same, he said. No, Elena replied. You control the outside world. I control the inside. Which one works better? Neither. We're both still drowning. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something Elena had never seen him do. He laughed. It was short, rough, like he'd forgotten how, but it was real. You're right, he said. We're both fucked. Elena smiled. Actually smiled. Completely. 3 weeks in, Elena learned Marcus's patterns. He arrived at 8:30 a.m. Always. Never 8:29. Never 8:31. He touched his desk 3 times before sitting down. He drank exactly 2 cups of coffee, one at 9:15 a.m., one at 2:30 p.m. He took phone calls standing up. He ended every meeting by tapping his pen against the desk. 3 times. Always 3. And every day at exactly 12:47 p.m., he would stop whatever he was doing and stare at his hands for 90 seconds. Elena never asked why. On day 22, Marcus broke his pattern. He arrived at 8:47 a.m., 17 minutes late. Vincent looked panicked. The other men in the hallway exchanged glances. But Marcus just walked into his office, sat down, and started working. He didn't touch the desk 3 times. He didn't align his pens. He just worked. Elena watched him carefully. Something was wrong. Around 10 a.m., Marcus's hands started shaking. He gripped the edge of his desk, knuckles white, breathing shallow. Elena stood up. Are you okay? Fine. He wasn't fine. His whole body was tense, coiled, like he was holding back an explosion. Elena walked over slowly, carefully. Marcus! He didn't look up. Marcus! Look at me. He did. His eyes were wild, desperate. I can't. His voice broke. I can't stop it. Stop what? The counting, the checking. I need to. I have to. Okay, Elena said calmly. Then do it. If I start, I won't stop. Then I'll stop. You! Marcus stared at her. Trust me, Elena said. He didn't trust easily. Didn't trust anyone, really. But he nodded, and he let go. His hands flew to the desk, touching, counting, tapping. He aligned every pen, every paper, every object. He counted the books on the shelf. He checked the locks on the cabinets. He walked the perimeter of the room, touching the walls in sequence. Elena just watched. She didn't interfere, didn't try to stop him. She just existed, calm, present. After 20 minutes, Marcus stopped. He stood in the center of the room, breathing hard, hands shaking. "Okay," Elena said softly. "You're okay." Marcus looked at her like she'd just pulled him out of the ocean. "How did you—" "I didn't do anything. You did it yourself. But I was just here." Marcus sank into his chair. The chair, the one that started everything. Elena sat down on the edge of his desk. It was the first time she'd touched anything in his space without permission. Marcus should have cared, but he didn't. "Why aren't you afraid of me?" he asked. "Because you're not afraid of me." "That doesn't make sense." "It's the only thing that does." Marcus reached out, slowly, carefully, and touched her hand, just her fingers, just for a second. Then he pulled back. "Thank you," he said quietly. Elena nodded. She didn't say it was nothing, because it wasn't. By week 5, Marcus realized he was in trouble. He thought about Elena constantly, not in the way he thought about his business, not with the calculating, strategic part of his brain, but in the quiet spaces, the in-between moments, when he was alone at night, when he was staring out the window, when he was trying to sleep and his mind wouldn't stop. He thought about the way she sat, completely still, but not frozen, the way she breathed, steady, even, like an anchor, the way she looked at him, not with fear, not with judgment, just with presence. It was becoming a problem, because Marcus Donovan didn't attach to people. Attachment meant vulnerability. Vulnerability meant weakness. Weakness meant death. But Elena was different. She didn't want anything from him, didn't ask for favors, didn't try to manipulate. She just existed in his space like she belonged there, and maybe that was the most dangerous thing of all. On day 32, Vincent pulled Marcus aside. "Boss, we need to talk." "About?" "The girl." Marcus's jaw tightened. "What about her?" "The men are asking questions. They don't understand why she's here. They don't need to understand. Some of them think she's a threat. She's not." Vincent hesitated. "How do you know?" "Because I know." "Boss, drop it, Vincent." Vincent didn't drop it. "Castellano's crew is getting restless. They're saying you're distracted. Weak." Marcus's eyes went cold. "Weak?" "Their words, not mine." "Set up a meeting." "Boss, I don't think—" "Set up the meeting. Tonight." Vincent nodded and left. Marcus stood alone in his office. Weak. He should have been furious, should have been planning retaliation, but all he could think about was Elena, and whether keeping her close was worth the war it might start. The meeting happened in a warehouse on the edge of the city. Marcus arrived with Vincent and 3 of his best men. Anthony Castellano was already there, mid-50s, thick neck, dead eyes. He ran the smuggling operations through the port. "Donovan," Castellano said, not offering a handshake. "Heard you've been busy." "Always am." "Heard you got yourself a new distraction." Marcus's expression didn't change. "Careful, Anthony." Castellano laughed. "Just making conversation, but the boys are talking, saying you're spending more time with some girl than running your business. The boys should focus on their own work." Hard to focus when the boss is losing his edge. Marcus took a step forward. "You think I've lost my edge?" "I think you're distracted." "Then you're wrong." "Am I?" Castellano leaned against a crate. "Because last I checked, you missed 3 shipment calls. Vincent's been covering for you. And that office of yours? Used to be a fortress. Now it's got a woman sitting in it like she owns the place." "She doesn't own anything." "Then what's she doing there?" Marcus didn't answer. Castellano smiled. "That's what I thought. You're getting soft, Donovan. And soft men don't last long in this business. You done?" "Almost." I've got a proposal. I'm not interested. Hear me out. You step back. Let me handle the Northeast operations. You keep your title, keep your cut, but you let someone else do the real work. Marcus laughed. Actually laughed. You think I'm going to hand over my empire because you don't like that I hired a woman? I think you're going to hand it over before you lose it. The warehouse went silent. Marcus's men shifted, hands moving toward weapons. Castellano's men did the same. This is how it's going to go, Marcus said quietly. You're going to walk out of here. You're going to go back to your territory. And you're going to forget you ever had this conversation. Or what? Or I'll remind you why everyone in this city is afraid of me. Castellano held his gaze for a long moment. Then he nodded. Your funeral, Donovan. He left. Marcus stood in the warehouse for a long time after the doors closed. Vincent approached carefully. Boss? He's going to make a move. I know. How long do we have? A week, maybe 2. Marcus ran a hand through his hair. Double security on the office. No one gets in without clearance. And the girl? Marcus's jaw tightened. She stays. Boss, if they're targeting you, they'll target her. Then we make sure they don't get close. Vincent didn't argue, but Marcus could see the concern in his eyes. Because Vincent knew the truth. Marcus wasn't protecting Elena because she was an employee. He was protecting her because he couldn't imagine his world without her in it anymore. And that was the most dangerous position either of them could be in. Elena knew something was wrong the moment she arrived the next morning. There were more men in the hallway, more guns, more tension. Vincent escorted her upstairs without a word. Marcus was at his desk, phone pressed to his ear, voice cold and clipped. He looked exhausted. When he hung up, he noticed Elena standing by the door. Sit, he said. She did. Silence stretched between them. Something happened, Elena said finally. Yes. Something bad. Yes. Does it involve me? Marcus looked at her, really looked at her. Yes, he admitted. Elena's stomach dropped. What do I need to do? Nothing. I'll handle it. Marcus, I said I'll handle it. But his hands were shaking. Elena stood up and walked to his desk. She sat on the edge, right where she'd sat weeks ago when he'd had his episode. Talk to me, she said softly. There's nothing to talk about. You're lying, Marcus laughed bitterly. You don't know me well enough to call me a liar. Yes, I do. He stared at her. There are people who think you're a weakness, he said finally. They think because you're here, I'm distracted, soft. Are you? No, but it doesn't matter what the truth is. It matters what they believe. So what happens now? Now I prove them wrong. How? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. By sending you away. Elena felt her chest tighten. What? It's not safe for you here anymore. I'll set you up somewhere else. Somewhere they can't find you. You'll be taken care of. Protected. I don't want to be protected. That's not your choice. Yes, it is. Marcus stood up. Elena, these people, they don't hesitate. They don't negotiate. If they think getting to you will hurt me, they'll do it. And they won't be gentle about it. Then teach me how to protect myself. That's not how this works. Why not? Because I can't lose you. The words hung in the air. Marcus looked shocked, like he hadn't meant to say it out loud. Elena's breath caught. You can't lose me, she repeated softly. Marcus turned away. Forget I said that. No. Elena, no, she said again, stronger this time. You don't get to say something like that and then take it back. Marcus gripped the edge of his desk. His knuckles were white. I don't know how to do this, he said quietly. I don't know how to care about someone and keep them safe at the same time. Elena walked around the desk, stood in front of him. Then let me help you figure it out. Marcus looked at her like she was the most terrifying thing he'd ever faced. And maybe she was, because bullets he could dodge, enemies he could eliminate, business he could control. But this connection, this attachment, he had no defense against it. If you stay, he said, everything changes. Everything already changed, Elena replied, the moment I sat in your chair. Marcus reached out and touched her face, just her cheek, just for a second. You should run, he whispered. I know, but you won't. No. Why? Elena smiled sadly. Because I'm just as broken as you are, and for some reason, being here makes me feel less broken. Marcus's thumb brushed her skin. Then stay, he said. Okay. But if things get bad, I'll deal with it. Elena, I'll deal with it. Marcus nodded. He didn't let go of her face, and Elena didn't pull away. They stood there, in the quiet of his office, holding on to each other like the world outside didn't exist, even though they both knew it did, and it was coming for them. 3 days later, someone tried to kill Marcus. It happened in the parking garage beneath his building. A black SUV, 3 men, semi-automatic weapons. Vincent shoved Marcus behind a concrete pillar and returned fire. The gunfight lasted less than 2 minutes, but it felt like hours. When it was over, 2 of the attackers were dead. The third escaped. Marcus was unharmed, but the message was clear. Castellano wasn't waiting. Marcus arrived at his office covered in someone else's blood, Vincent half carrying him inside. Elena was there. She took one look at him and stood up. Are you hurt? No. Vincent? I'm fine, Vincent grunted. Elena grabbed a towel from the bathroom and started wiping the blood off Marcus's face. Her hands were steady, calm. Marcus just stared at her. You should have left, he said. I didn't. Elena, I'm not leaving. Marcus grabbed her wrist, gentle but firm. This is just the beginning, he said. They're going to keep coming. Then we fight back. We? Yes, we. Vincent cleared his throat. Boss, we need to move you to a safe house. No. Boss, I'm not running, not from Castellano, not from anyone. Then what's the plan? Marcus looked at Elena, at the woman who'd walked into his life by accident and somehow become the center of it. We end this, he said. Tonight. Marcus spent the next 6 hours planning. Phone calls, strategy sessions, moving pieces into place. Elena watched from the couch, silent. Around 8 p.m., Marcus sent Vincent and the others away. I need an hour, he told them. Then we move. Vincent nodded and left. Marcus and Elena were alone. He sat down next to her on the couch, close enough to touch but not touching. This is my fault, he said. No, it's not. I brought you into this world. I put you in danger. I chose to stay. You shouldn't have. Elena turned to face him. Why did you really ask me to stay? That first day, the real reason. Marcus was quiet for a long time. Because for the first time in my life, he said finally, I felt like I could breathe. Elena's chest ached. You sat in that chair, Marcus continued, and you weren't afraid. You weren't trying to prove anything. You just existed. And for some reason, that broke something open in me. What did it break? The part of me that thought control was the only way to survive. Elena reached out and took his hand. What if you're wrong? She asked softly. About what? About control being the only thing keeping you alive. What if it's the thing that's killing you? Marcus stared at their joined hands. I don't know how to exist any other way. Neither do I, but maybe we can figure it out together. Marcus pulled her closer. She leaned into him, head on his shoulder, breathing in sync. When this is over, he said quietly, I'm going to ask you to leave. For real this time. And I'm going to say no. Elena, no, she repeated. I'm not leaving you. Not because I need the money, not because I'm afraid of being alone, but because being here, with you, makes me feel like I matter. Marcus pressed his lips to her hair. You matter, he whispered. More than you should. No! They stayed like that until Vincent called. It was time. The meeting with Castellano was set for midnight. Neutral territory, an abandoned factory on the waterfront. Marcus arrived with Vincent and 4 men. Castellano had twice that number. Donovan, Castellano called out. Glad you could make it. Let's get this over with. Straight to business. I respect that. Castellano lit a cigar. Here's the deal. You step down, quietly. I take over operations. You keep 20%. No? No? I'm not giving you anything. Castellano's smile faded. Then we have a problem. We've had a problem for weeks. Let's just finish it. You think you can take me? I know I can. Castellano laughed. You're delusional. And you're desperate. Otherwise, you wouldn't have tried to kill me in broad daylight. That wasn't desperation. That was a warning. Well, here's mine. Marcus pulled out a folder and tossed it at Castellano's feet. Your offshore accounts, your shipment routes, every bribe you've paid in the last 5 years, all of it. Castellano's face went pale. I've had people watching you for months, Marcus said. One phone call and the feds get everything. Your operation crumbles. You spend the rest of your life in prison. You're bluffing. Marcus pulled out his phone. Try me. The standoff stretched. Finally, Castellano bent down and picked up the folder. He flipped through it, face growing darker with every page. You bastard. We done here? Castellano's hand moved toward his gun. Vincent's men raised their weapons. Don't, Marcus said calmly. You pull that trigger, and you're dead before you hit the ground. And even if you get lucky, even if you kill me, that folder still goes to the feds. Is it worth it? Castellano's hand froze. I didn't think so. Castellano lowered his gun. This isn't over. Yes, Marcus said. It is. He turned and walked away. Vincent and his men followed. The drive back was silent. Marcus stared out the window, adrenaline fading, exhaustion setting in. You good, boss? Vincent asked. Yeah. What about the girl? Marcus's jaw tightened. What about her? You gonna tell her what you did? No. Why not? Because she doesn't need to know what I'm capable of. Vincent didn't respond. Because they both knew the truth. Elena already knew exactly what Marcus was capable of. And she was still there anyway. Marcus returned to his office at 2:00 a.m. Elena was still there, curled up on the couch, asleep, book open in her lap. He stood in the doorway, watching her. She looked peaceful, safe, everything he wasn't. Marcus walked over quietly and sat down on the edge of the couch. Elena stirred, opened her eyes. Hey, she murmured. Hey, is it done? Yeah, it's done. Elena sat up, looked at him carefully. Are you okay? I'm fine. Marcus. I'm fine, Elena. But he wasn't. His hands were shaking again. the adrenaline, crash hitting hard. Elena reached out and took his hands in hers. "Breathe," she said softly. Marcus tried. Failed. "I can't." "Yes, you can. With me. In for 4. He breathed in. "Hold for 4. He held. "Out for 4. He released. They did it again, and again, until the shaking stopped, until Marcus could think clearly again. "Thank you," he whispered. Elena smiled. "You keep saying that." "Because I keep meaning it." She leaned her head on his shoulder. They sat in comfortable silence. "I want to show you something," Marcus said finally. "Okay." He stood up and walked to his desk, opened the top drawer. Inside was a small black notebook. He handed it to Elena. "What is this?" "Read it." Elena opened the notebook. Inside were lists, hundreds of them. Things Marcus had counted, checked, aligned. Every ritual, every compulsion, dated and cataloged. "I've been tracking them for 15 years, Marcus said. "Every time I felt the need to count. Every time I couldn't stop checking. I wrote it down." Elena flipped through the pages. Some days had dozens of entries. Some had hundreds. "Why are you showing me this?" Marcus sat down next to her. "Because I want you to see what you've done." He flipped to the last few pages. The entries were different, fewer, shorter, and next to several of them, there was a single word: Elena. "Since you've been here," Marcus said quietly, "I've counted less, checked less, needed less." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "You're helping me," he continued, "even when you're not trying to, even when you're just sitting there, existing. You're helping me." "Marcus, I need you to know that, because I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to understand why." Elena closed the notebook. "What are you going to ask?" Marcus took a deep breath. "Stay with me. Not just in the office, not just during the day. Stay with me. Permanently." Elena's heart stopped. "I know it's insane," Marcus continued. "I know I'm dangerous. I know being with me means looking over your shoulder for the rest of your life, but He stopped, swallowed. "I can't go back to how things were before you. I can't sit in this office alone anymore, counting and checking and drowning. I need you, Elena, not because I'm weak, but because you make me want to be stronger." Elena stared at him. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I'm in love with you, and I don't know when it happened or how it happened, but it did, and I can't change it." Tears spilled down Elena's cheeks. "I'm in love with you too," she whispered. Marcus exhaled, like he'd been holding his breath for years. "Yeah?" "Yeah." He reached out and cupped her face in his hands. "You're sure?" "I'm sure. Even though I'm broken. Yeah, so am I." Marcus kissed her, soft, gentle, like she was something precious. And maybe she was, because in a world built on violence and control, Elena Torres was the one thing Marcus Donovan couldn't afford to lose. When they pulled apart, Elena smiled. "So what now?" Marcus looked at his chair, the chair that started everything. "Now," he said, "we figure out how to live together. No more counting? I'll probably still count sometimes. No more checking? I'll probably still check. No more rituals?" Marcus smiled. "Some rituals are good." Elena laughed, actually laughed, and Marcus realized something. He didn't need the world to be perfect anymore. He just needed her to be in it. 6 months later, Marcus's office looked different. The desk was still aligned, the pens were still organized, the books were still arranged by height, But there were new things, too. A blanket on the couch where Elena slept sometimes, a second coffee mug on the shelf, a small plant by the window that she'd insisted on bringing in. Marcus still had OCD, still counted, still checked, but it was different now, manageable. Elena sat at the desk, his desk, working on her laptop. She'd enrolled in online classes, psychology, because she wanted to understand what Marcus went through, wanted to help others like him. Marcus stood by the window watching the city. "You're quiet," Elena said. "Just thinking." "About?" He turned to look at her, at the woman sitting in his chair like she belonged there, because she did. "About how a year ago I would have killed someone for sitting where you're sitting." Elena smiled. "And now? Now I can't imagine anyone else being there." She stood up and walked over to him, wrapped her arms around his waist. "You've come a long way. We've come a long way." They stood together, looking out at the city that had tried to destroy them both. "Do you still think about it?" Elena asked softly. "The counting, the checking, every day. Does it still control you?" Marcus thought about it. "No," he said finally. "It's still there. Probably always will be. But you taught me something." "What?" "That control isn't the same as safety. Real peace. It comes from letting someone in, even when it's terrifying." Elena rested her head on his chest. "I'm glad I sat in your chair," she said. Marcus laughed. "So am I. Even though I wasn't supposed to? Especially because you weren't supposed to." They stayed like that for a long time, and somewhere in the quiet of that moment, Marcus realized something. He'd spent his entire life trying to create order out of chaos, but the most important thing he'd ever found came from chaos itself. A tired woman, a forbidden chair, a broken man learning how to heal. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. 1 year later. Elena still worked in Marcus's office, not because he paid her, not because she had nowhere else to go, but because it was home. She'd graduated with her psychology degree, started volunteering at a crisis center, helped people who were drowning the way Marcus had been drowning. Marcus still ran his empire, still made the hard calls, still lived in a world of violence and power, but he came home to her every night, and that made all the difference. Vincent knocked on the door, twice, like always. "Come in," Marcus called. Vincent entered, looking uncomfortable. "Boss, there's someone here to see you." "Who?" "A kid. Says his name is David. Says he needs help." Marcus looked at Elena. She nodded. "Send him in." A teenage boy walked in, 17, maybe 18, thin, scared, eyes darting around the room like he was looking for exits. Marcus recognized that look. He'd worn it himself once. "Sit down," Marcus said, gesturing to the client chair. The kid sat. "What do you need?" Marcus asked. I heard you help people sometimes, people who don't have anywhere else to go." Marcus glanced at Elena. She smiled. "Yeah," Marcus said. "Sometimes I do." The kid exhaled in relief, and Marcus realized something. The man he'd been a year ago would have turned this kid away, would have seen him as a liability, a distraction. But the man he was now, the man Elena had helped him become, couldn't do that, because everyone deserved a chance, even broken people, especially broken people. "What's your story?" Marcus asked. The kid started talking, and Elena reached over and took Marcus's hand, because this, helping someone else climb out of the darkness, this was what healing looked like. Not perfect, not easy, but real. And in the end, real was all that mattered.